So hi guys, one of the problems with this hobby is that something we use a lot of is thinners and cleaners. Now everything in this world seems to be getting more and more expensive, and obviously hobby has to be classed as a luxury item because rent, bills, food has to be classed as more important, and obviously as those prices go up that leaves us less money for the hobby. So I found a way, courtesy of a few YouTube videos, which I'll try and link below. You know I'm terrible at doing links, I always forget, but I will really try to remember. I've found a formula to make thinners and cleaners, watching lots of different YouTube videos, trying things out, and I have now managed to make my own thinners and cleaners for about 1/7 of the cost of buying it, with no loss of quality. Let me show you how I do it. Okay, so what I have here is some equipment, some materials that are shop bought, and behind that is some materials that I'm going to use to make my own thinners and cleaners. So this is a very popular brand. This is Vallejo Airbrush Thinner and Airbrush Cleaner. Now these cost, I did a very quick search online, and it's about £3.83 per 100 millilitres. These come in 200 mils for about £6.75. So for the purposes of this video, I'm calling this £3.38 per 100 millilitres. This is another thinner. It's slightly cheaper actually. It's Tamiya thinners. This comes in 250 mils at a cost of I've forgotten the cost, £6 for 250 mil, which works out around about £2.40 per 100 mils. Not hugely expensive, but we can save money. Now I'm going to be honest with you, my airbrush cleaner, I cannot beat this, but this is actually, it's actually not that cheap if you buy it in big. This is a 946 ml bottle. I did a quick look on the internet and it comes out at £22.40 for 907 ml, which is about £2.47. I do use this. I use this for very stubborn jobs. Because I now make my own cleaner, I can just chuck that in. This is just, it means I use a lot less of this. I probably use about 5% of what I used to do. I use this for a deep airbrush clean. That's the only time I use it. I got some with my airbrush, and what I now do is when this runs out, I just decant it into this, and it's really good. So I will be honest with you guys. My own opinion, and you'll end up with your own opinion if you make your own stuff. Go with what you like. Now also one thing to note, this is a personalized recipe. I'll explain why I put how much of each stuff in, and why I put it in, and it's all to do with airbrushing or brush painting. So I'm going to put that to one side. As I say, that's actually cheaper than this because I'm buying it in bulk. It's the only real way you can get it at any reasonable cost. Otherwise it's a lot more expensive than Vallejo. If you have found yourself buying these, don't despair. The empty bottles are really useful. I've actually bought my own bottles. You see, I've got the recipe and a label on it. This is just so that I can repeat the process without having to look things up. But I've got a bottle here with a little, this is a radio controlled petrol pipe, because I find that when I do that it splashes everywhere, but then I do this and it works better. So a lot of this I've built up over the years, so a lot of the equipment I have already got. Now I will say, disclaimer, unfortunately I will quote a lot of prices at you, and I will give you prices per 100 mil. Not for the individual stuff so much, but for the total finished product. To buy all of this, you will spend a lot more money than if you went out and bought this. However, you will then end up with so much product, you can make this 7 times over per bottle, and it is about 7 times. So the first thing I'm going to show you is thinners. Now the main ingredient of airbrush thinners, and just because it says airbrush thinner, there we go, no, that's the cleaner. So just because it says airbrush thinner on it, and just because this says thinner, you can use this one for your airbrush, and you can use this one for brush painting. Doesn't make a massive amount of difference. This is probably formulated a little bit different, and that's why I have my own personal opinion on it. So the main ingredients for thinners is alcohol and water. Now if you look this up on the internet, they will tell you to use distilled water. I live in Scotland. A couple of other people agree with this opinion. Scottish water is very good, so I'm happy to use tap water instead of distilled water. You can buy distilled water, it's not expensive, you can buy it at supermarkets and car garages. I just happen to feel that this is very good quality. Now when I lived in Norfolk, I would not dare to use tap water on anything. The amount of lime in it is absolutely dreadful, but up in Scotland it's fantastic. Now this is about 98% of your ingredients. The alcohol cost me £15 for 2 bottles, each bottle being a litre. So that works out, I'm going to use about, I've written down 60 mil. I don't think I'm using that much, but it works out about 45 pence for about 60 mil. Now I'm making about 180 mil of thinners, and I'm making about 240 mils of cleaner, and I'll explain the difference later on. So what you're looking for is about 2 parts water, 1 part alcohol. You see that I've put lines on here. This is just for my reference. Like I say, I can make this later on. Now you probably want to wear gloves, especially if you've got sensitive hands, and one of the ingredients I would strongly recommend, or at least use a pipette. I'm going to use a pipette. So isopropanol alcohol, this is 99.9%. It's ever so easy to get hold of, just as easy as any other alcohol. I've heard a lot of people on the internet say use a minimum of 60% or 90%. Just go straight and use the 99.9%. I also use this for cleaning in the kitchen. I mix about 1 part alcohol with about 4 or 5 parts water, and I think it makes a lovely cleaner for my worktops. Makes my kitchen smell like a hospital. So what we're going to do is, as you see, I'm eyeballing this. Now I filled that up to this line. That is ever so slightly above it. That's fine. Now I'm going to put some in this bottle for cleaner, and I'll explain why. It's because the first ingredients of thinner and cleaner are exactly the same. So to save a little bit of time later on, I'm going to just put these in first of all to start with. So we have 1 part, roughly 100 mil, well 60 mil, depends on the size of your bottle. If you've got litre size bottles, you'll probably put about 300 mil in. So 1 part alcohol, And I do like the smell of alcohol, I'm sorry. Don't drink it. Do not drink it. Right, so the next step, we want 2 parts of water. I use it in this bottle because I use water as part of my hobbying. And we'll just fill that up. So we've got roughly 2 parts. Like I say, I've pre-measured these and I've marked them with a line. Doesn't matter if you go over or under. It's just an approximate. That's actually a little bit low. If you put more water in, then obviously it's going to cost you a little bit less per 100 ml. If you put more in, if you put less in, it's going to be a bit more expensive, be a little bit stronger as well. So there's our 2 parts water, and like I say, I'm going to pop in some water into the one for cleaners, and that's where the similarity ends. Right, so that's about 1 part alcohol, 2 parts cleaner. Why is that water? Sorry, what's that gone cloudy? Never mind. I'm sure that'll settle. So this is the main basis of our thinners. Now, obviously, I can't do smell-o-vision, but if I smell the difference between these two, there isn't an awful lot of difference. So I know that the main ingredients are very similar. Now, the next part, excuse me, I'm so sorry. The next part you want to tailor according to your own needs. First thing you want to do is some flow improvement. That just helps the paint flow. It just changes the surface tension a little bit, and that will just help. You know, when you're painting, it will flow off the brush better. So this is the flow improver. Now this costs about £14 for this much. It is a little bit expensive. However, watch this. We're going to be adding roughly 3 ml. I have a 5 ml teaspoon. So as far as I'm concerned, 3 ml is almost filled up. There's probably about 4 ml in there, and that can go in. Equally, you can use a pipette. Now, you do not want to use more than, I believe it's 10% flow improver by total volume. So to show you how much effect it's actually going to have, this will be about 200-ish ml. You shouldn't be using more than 20 ml. We're using 3. A little does go a long way. So although this is 11 no flow improver, although this is £14 per 250 ml, I've used 1% of it, just over 1%. Right, the next ingredient we've got is fluid retarder. Now what fluid retarder does is it slows down the drying properties of paint. And this is important for 2 reasons. First of all, it gives you a little bit more working time. You know, if your paint dries immediately, you've got no time to work with it. Secondly, the combination of the air in an airbrush as well as the alcohol will speed up the drying process. If I get let's get a piece of cloth. I may not be able to show you too well. I hope I can. Right, so I'm going to get a little bit of alcohol. Just dampen the cloth. Right, what I'm going to do, I'm going to wipe my mobile phone with it. So do you see how quickly that's drying? It's evaporating very, very quickly. It's very hard with the light on it. Now if I do the same thing with water, you can see it's taking much longer to dry, and that's going to have the same effect with your paint. I'm just going to go over that with a bit of alcohol. There you go, like the alcohol is so much quicker. Gonna have to give my phone a good polish now and get rid of those streaks. So obviously with the alcohol going through and the fact that you've got air going through, it's going to dry that paint much quicker, and you're going to end up with clogs in your airbrush. So like I say, I am going to be using this for brush painting as well as airbrush cleaning, but you know, fluid retardant is pretty good anyway to have. So again, about 3 or 4 mil, and if you find, there's probably a little bit more in there, you can use a pipette as well if you want, but I'm using a teaspoon that I know is 5 milliliters. So there we go. That's in there. I think I've got a strong light coming from somewhere. Now that is it. That is my airbrush cleaner, airbrush thinner. So to give you an idea of the cost, this has cost me for 100 mil is £2.40. Mr. Hobby do one as well, and that works out about £3.50 for per 100 mil. This has just cost me 51 pence. So if it's costing me 51 pence, I don't mind using it. So for example, when I clean my airbrush out, I have a bit of water, I do a cupful of water, spray that through, cupful of thinner, spray that through, cupful of cleaner, clean that through. If it's particularly stubborn, I'll give it another load of cleaners. If it's still a bit stubborn, then the Medina airbrush cleaner will come out. And then once I've cleaned it, then the thinners go through again, then the water. And I really don't mind being quite liberal with everything, because 51 pence, £2.40, big difference. So I've made me thinners, and so now I want to make my cleaners. So I've made my cleaner exactly the same as the thinner for the first 2 ingredients. That's really warm. I think it's my house that's warm actually. So I've got my cleaner, which is again exactly the same. It's 1 part water, 1 part alcohol, 2 parts water, but there's 2 other ingredients going in, possibly 3. So the first ingredient I'm going to use is concentrated screen wash. Now anyone who owns a car will know what this is. Now use the concentrated, because obviously I always use concentrate anyway, because I can then dilute it according to what I need for the use in my car. Summertime I'll do a more diluted than wintertime, as probably most car drivers do. So what we're going to do is we've got 1 part alcohol, 2 parts water. We're going to put 1 part cleaner in it. And one of the good things, I like the blue one, and the reason I like the blue one is because now I can't get those 2 muddled up, can I? I know that's cleaner, and that just helps clean things out a little bit more. Now the last ingredient, there's 2 more ingredients actually, and both of them are totally optional. One is I do decant mine. This is 3-in-1 oil, and if you put 3-in-1 oil in, you only want about a glug in, not much at all. It will just help lubricate the needle on the airbrush. If you're doing a lot of airbrush cleaning, you probably might want to put this in. If you're doing mostly brush painting, then not so much. First time I made this, I went a little bit heavy, so I'm just going to put about 3 or 4 drops, just a few. Now the drawback with using oil is, as you can imagine, oil and water don't mix. So what that means is that every time I use this, I must give it a good shake. Oops, and I should have held the end there because I've just sprayed cleaner everywhere. So give it a good shake and then use it, and it's absolutely fine. Now the last ingredient, totally optional, is Ammonia Cleaner, and I find this quite hard to get hold of. I had to get this from Amazon. Now keep this away from you because it absolutely reeks, and you want about 3 ml. Now, because of the nature of ammonia, I'm going to use a pipette. Now this is a 2 ml pipette, so I'm going to have to put more than 1 pipette full in, but this just really helps clean. As I say, it is optional. That's about 1.5, so 1 of those, and then we'll put another one in, about 1.5. Now, the more ammonia you put in, the better it's going to clean, but also the higher risk you have of damaging. In your airbrush you have a rubber O-ring, so if you had, you know, if you left the cleaner in there, it could damage the O-ring. But also, even with just a little bit in there, it's got a very, very strong ammonia smell. But that's your cleaner, guys. So this, because of the screen wash, it reduces the cost per milliliter. So whereas this is 51 pence per 100 ml, this is about 45 pence. Now, comparing this with this is £3.38 per 100 mils. This is 45 pence per 100 mils, and this, sorry, that's £3.38. That's still £3.38, but that's thinner. So this is £3.38. This is 51 pence. That's about 1/7 of the cost. This does run in at slightly cheaper. This is £2.40 per 100 ml. This is 51 pence. So although it's cost me about £18 for all of those ingredients, I can, for what I've paid for that, I can make 5 bottles of this. So obviously, guys, you want me to put this to the test, and you've seen me use this anyway, but let me find some paint that I've got, something that will show up well on camera. Let me move my camera. So, and you may want to decant this. I do like to decant into smaller bottles, especially when I'm doing brush painting. So we'll pop some paint on there, and you can see that's nice and thick. That's far too thick to paint with. So we'll get a brush. Let's get a nice. Oh, I can't find my decent paint brushes. There we go. Got a nice big brush. So, homemade airbrush thinner. Couple of drops. Look at that, guys. That's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I've got to find something to paint now. Let me find something out of my spares. So I've just ripped this off, but so give that a nice mix. Look at that, guys. How good is that? So that's my homemade thinners for you. So just to show I'm not fibbing, let's use some professional thinners, shall we? And I'm going to use the Vallejo airbrush thinner, just because of the bottle. It's got a little thing on it, so give that a bit of a mix. There we go. And we'll paint that on next to it. Absolutely beautiful, but at 7 times the cost, I would expect it to be. So that's my thinners. I'll do another coat. This is the one with the homemade thinner. So are you happy with that result? It's a little bit too thick there, and I did paint a second layer on before it dried. So homemade thinners at about the same, well, about 1/7 of the cost. So let's give this a little bit of a stern test. This is some paint which has been sat on my palette for a long time. Well, I say a long time, I mean more like a couple of days. So give that a bit of a shake, because we've got some oil in there. Would you give a little bit of it? Now obviously this is thin paint on a palette, but look. And I know this is a shiny tile, but I'm happy with those results. So it certainly works okay. And I'll tell you what I'll do. I've got my lovely cutting mat here. And as you can see, I'm accidentally spilling some paint on my cutting board. Oh no, what a disaster. I actually have just spilled a load accidentally now. So obviously we want to clean that up. So there we go. Yeah, that's a worst case scenario, isn't it? Cleaners are obviously meant to clean your airbrush out. So you'll see a couple of weeks ago I did make some videos on cleaning airbrushes and using airbrush. This is the products that I use, guys. So there you go. That's my my homemade airbrush thing. I say mine. It's not mine. I have researched this on YouTube, and I've got some great results just looking and just experimenting. You see, there was no exact measurements there. These markings actually were made by a ruler. I've just put the masking tape on, but I think you'll find they're about 1 inch. Yeah, look, just under an inch, or yeah, about an inch, and about 1.5 inches, 2 inches. So like, even they're not exact. So yeah, there you go, guys. So if you can get a hold of little bits of this, give it a go. You know, as like I say, the drawback is it is quite expensive. Let's do a quick tot up. 2 bottles of this, £15. Flow improver, £14. Retarder, £11. These will last you for absolutely ages. I think I've had this for about, well, you can see the state of the bottle. I've had this absolutely years. Screen wash is about, this didn't cost me £8, but it's about £8 for 5 litres. If you're a car user, you'll be using this anyway. And the ammonia was £7 for a ½ litre bottle, but this will do you 100 uses, maybe even more. So to buy the initial ingredients, you are looking at about £45. But the amount that you'll make out of that is absolutely phenomenal. So let's go front camera. Ta-da. So guys, I hope that video is useful. If you want to make your own thinners, it's, you know, if you're like me, you'll get through a lot of thinners, especially if you're using one of these bad boys. As I say, I'm going through about 5 cupfuls just to clean it. So next week we're going to be going back to modelling, and we're going to be looking at filling gaps, and then we'll be looking at the week after, we'll be looking possibly at painting parts, and then as we speak, I don't know what we're going to do the week after, but you know me, I'll think of something. So take care, guys, and I will catch you in the next video.